let's get those dogs in. Come on, we've got to get to doggy school. Yes, come on. Hup. There we go. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Right, let's go. Now, this is very, very exciting, and it's a first. It's a first. Oh, Bridget. So what we're doing now is, the whole idea with this is the Volvo XC40. It's a classic school run car, and we thought, let's do a school run. Let's get a load of kids from the local school, and we'll drive them all together in one school, and then in one car. And then we went, no way is that possible. Because of current restrictions, we can't do it. And then we went, well, what about dogs? People who have Volvos, they have children, they have dogs. How many dogs can we get in the car? We've currently got 7. 7 dogs. They're all being very well behaved, aren't you? Such a good doggy. So that in the back is lots and lots of lovely dogs, and they're being very well behaved. In front of me is the Volvo XC40 P8 Recharge. That's its full name. And of course, this is fully charged.
Don't forget our great EV giveaway. Subscribe and enter for the chance to win one of several electrifying prizes, including one of 4 electric cars.
Now, normally, of course, I know that I'm going to get a lot of comments about driving along in a car with a dog on my lap. We're doing this under controlled circumstances. Do not try this at home. Now, are you dogs ready to get out? Woohoo! Here we are! Woohoo! There you go. You go over there. Good boy. So this is slightly unplanned because Hector was not in our original plan of having dogs on the dog run, and so we weren't quite expecting Hector to come up. But I think he heard on the doggy grapevine that there was some filming going on near the village. So Hector came out to see us, which you're not meant to do, Hector. So we're going to take you back home now. Good boy. That's right, he's a very good dog. And we're now going to do a sensible, down-to-earth review of the Volvo XC40. Nice. So I've had a sort of look at this car. No one's offended by it. All the people I know who've seen it go, oh, that looks quite nice. My lovely wife. I said, what do you think of the Volvo? She said, it's all right, which I guarantee is an amazingly good review. It's all right is as good as it gets. It's very, very spacious inside. It's quite a big car. It's quite a heavy car. And it's quite an expensive car, as I've said. Now, I've found out a little bit more about the pricing of this car because it is very special and unique. Maybe it's a Volvo thing. I don't know. In the UK, this car costs £60,005. This car, £60,005. In the Netherlands, it costs €55,495. That is about £40,000. So like somewhere around £20,000 cheaper if you buy one in the Netherlands. But then if you make the mistake of going a bit further and going to Germany, it costs 60,000 euros. In America, it cost about $55,000, which again is about 45,000 pounds. So this car is incredibly expensive in the UK, but quite reasonable in other countries. I don't understand why that is. We often, when we do a test drive, we often drive to a charger to make sure that we know how to charge the car and see how fast it charges. This car is still at about 90%. We haven't gone far enough today, but we stopped here anyway. And it's just as well we don't need to charge, because those are eco-tricity chargers and all of them are being used. They're charging 3 cars at the same time, a Nissan Leaf, a Porsche Taycan and a Jaguar I-Pace, and they're all charging. In fact, the Taycan I think is about to leave. And that's interesting, only that there's been a lot of controversy in the last few years because eco-tricity's chargers have been frustratingly sort of not very reliable all the time. If you have a CHAdeMO, like a Nissan Leaf, CHAdeMO, they always work, that's really reliable, but if you're using CCS, it's been a bit of a problem. But as we reported in a previous episode very recently, they're about to upgrade all their chargers right over the whole country. Every single services like this in the UK has eco-tricity chargers. They're about to get GridServe / eco-tricity chargers, much faster, much more reliable, tap to pay, much easier to use, and many more of them. So this whole car park will be a row of chargers in 6 months' time. So let's talk about battery range, battery size, all those sort of things. It's got a EV database range of around 200 miles, which I think is, from experience, I'd say is close to reality. The WLTP range is 260 miles. That is impossible. I don't think you'd ever get 260 miles out of this car, no matter where you were driving or how slow. You'd have to be in a vacuum driving at 17 miles an hour down a hill. It has a 75 kilowatt hour battery, 75 kilowatt hour usable. It's a 78 kilowatt hour pack. 75 kilowatt hour of usable energy. Now, charging the Volvo, normally we actually do plug it in and charge it, but the battery is actually at over 90%. There's really no need to at the moment, but it charges at up to 11 kilowatts from a home charge wall box, which is really good. Adds about 30 miles of range every hour that you're charging it, so overnight it's obviously going to fill it. And then on rapid chargers like these ones, if the charger can deliver the power, this can take up to 151 kilowatts. Now that is adding, at a rough guess, if the battery is fairly empty, is adding somewhere around 400 miles range in an hour. Well, obviously the car doesn't have 400 miles range, so you can then work out, well, it's in half an hour you're adding, from about 10% to about 80%. In fact, less than half an hour, about 25 minutes. So it charges very well. It will charge very rapidly. Very simple, and it's that I quite like. That unlocks it if you've got the key with you and you're worried about how to take the charging cable out. You just press that and it goes choo, lock comes off and you take it out. End of story. So right after we filmed our opening sequence today with all our friends' dogs in the back of the car, which, I suddenly then, this is so stupid, this isn't relevant, this isn't real. Seriously, this is what happened. A diesel Volvo drove up the lane past us with a woman driving it, and the back of that car was jammed full of dogs. I don't think I've ever actually seen that before. I don't know how many, I think she had more than we did. And I went, that is so weird that we see that. So Volvo drivers, they like dogs. That's fair enough. I'm not going to comment on that one way or the other. But all that aside, I just want to say that having had this car for a little bit longer, which makes such a big difference, there's no hesitation in telling you what an absolute joy this car is to drive. It's a Volvo. They know how to do that. They know how to make a car incredibly stable and safe and easy to drive and easy to use. It's just a delight. That side of it is a delight. It is very, very hyper competent. Here's a nice thing. The other day I was for real carrying 2 big bags of shopping. I walked up to the car, and as the man instructed me, beneath the O of Volvo, I put my foot like that. And it works! Even I can do it! Now, the back of this car was exquisitely crisply clean before we had the dogs in it, so it's got a little bit grubbier, but as you can see, it has loads of room, and this I rather like. I think this is a rather good feature, this folding extra bit here. What I've done is put my shopping in there, put that down on top of it. It just holds your shopping steady. So when you go around corners, it isn't flying all around the place. That's what, I'm sure that's not what it's for, but it is very useful. It's extra storage. You could put your charging cables there if you like. Oh, you say, oh, what's that for? That looks a bit weird. Oh, I wonder what that does. This is exciting. So many people ask us, can this car tow? Can it tow, they say, and I'll tell you. Yes! It can. There is a fold-away tow hook, isn't that cool? I don't think it's unique to this car. I think there's other Volvos that do it, but I think that is very good. So once you've got that in, you then plug your trailer, you plug that into there, and you plug your trailer into that. This can tow 1,500 kilos of braked trailer. That's a trailer with brakes, or about 550 or 600 kilos unbraked trailer. So it can pull a big chunky trailer or a caravan. So yes, it can tow. Will it affect the range? Duh! Yes, of course it will. If you tow a big thing behind a petrol car, you use more petrol. If you tow it behind an electric car, you use more electricity. That's pretty obvious. Now, how do you get rid of that? I'm hoping, yes, you do that and it goes back under. Sometimes when I try and explain how things work, they don't work. This one worked. The other thing that is intriguing is it doesn't tell you how many miles range you've got, which as far as I can remember, every electric car I've ever driven has done that somewhere in the settings. You can see it. We have been through this software with a fine tooth comb and we cannot find anywhere that does it. And the only way that the crew have found is to ask Google. And I'm clearly saying the wrong question. How many miles range have I got?
You are 6 miles away from the range, Evesham by car.
That is not what I... Oh! Okay, I know what that is. That is the store called The Range. That is so it's got Google Voice. It's got Google. It's basically a Google car in terms of the software. And so I've just asked how else can I phrase the question? How far can I drive without charging? No. How much range have I got? Let me try that. How much range do I have?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Okay, let's give up on that. So, I mean, the interior is very nice. There's no question about that. We're not absolutely certain what the seats are made of. They're very comfy. They sort of look a bit real leatherish. So we're going to check, and the lower third will inform you whether they are real leather or not. But yes, they're not screaming their vegan credentials. So it has all the normal stuff with heated seats, heated steering wheel, all that stuff. I quite like these vents, which are going to be a standard Volvo feature. They're not specific to this car. There's a nice big knob for your media there, so you don't have to do touch screeny stuff. That's very easy to use. Even I could use that one. The software is a mixture of really brilliant, which is Google Maps, very, very easy to use. That works beautifully and operates just like Google Maps. That's really, that's very, very sophisticated. Next generation sat nav works really well. I mean, not next generation for us with phones. It's next generation for cars made by traditional car makers. They've really struggled with stuff like this. This works really well. Some of the kind of more detailed information I would quite like about the car and its energy use is kind of missing. So now I've tried to find out there's nowhere that will tell me what the range is. I know now. In fact, I've got 86%. Of the battery's range left. How many miles range have I got left? So it's saying it there.
You can drive for about 167 miles with the remaining charge.
Okay, I like that. Thank you. Running gear of this car is essentially exactly the same as the Polestar 2, which we test drove earlier last year, which was a magnificent car, and I loved it because of the shape of it and the styling of it and the quality of the build of it. And this car is uses an existing model of Volvo, the XC40. You can buy a diesel one, you can buy a petrol one, you can buy a plug-in hybrid one. And I've often said, and I'm going to say it more, that I just think that is always compromised to a certain degree. But I have to admit, what Volvo have done with this car is they've clearly designed the XC40 with having an electric version in mind. So in a sense, it's a kind of hybrid, because although you can get a petrol version, it was clearly built with the idea that one of the versions would be pure electric, because it's just done really well. It's not done shoddily. It's not like they haven't jammed some battery packs in under the back seat awkwardly because they didn't have a petrol tank. They've somehow managed to design the whole chassis, the running gear, everything, so that it absolutely suits an electric drivetrain. So this is an all-wheel drive, luxury, I'd say, family, compact SUV. It has impressive, okay, here's the two things that have really impressed me and surprised me, because we've driven a lot of cars that are very similar to this style in the last year, and they have varying levels of performance. This has performance. This car is fast. This car has some proper sporty, peppy acceleration. 0 to 60 in just under 5 seconds, which in a big 5-seater family car is crazy fast. A bit like the Polestar. It has a top speed of 112 miles an hour. So obviously it's dual motor. It has, front and rear wheel drive. It is at 300 kilowatts. Now, I don't know if that's one of the motors. This is just the basic stats that you get. Or that's a combination of both motors, but it's about 400 horsepower. So it's a powerful car that can really shift. It does have automatic intervention collision avoidance. So it's that stuff that Volvo have been doing for years. It's really got safety is at the top of their agenda and has been for a long time. Now, I recently misdescribed a sound system in a vehicle, and a lot of people commented, fair enough, point taken, got it all wrong. I had classified it as a Bose sound system, and it was actually Bang & Olufsen. But this time, I don't have that problem, because it says here on the door, Harman Kardon. So it has a Harman Kardon sound system. I have played some heavy rock dating from the early 1970s through these speakers, and let me tell you, I rocked out as I drove to the supermarket to get some milk. So the headlights, these were designed by Volvo, and were then used and inspired by the same designer who then went to Polestar and designed the Polestar one. So there's a kind of design language that flows through the Polestar line and Volvo. And then there's a frunk, which I think is really, really good. And I think this is interesting because this car is not exclusively electric, it is also a petrol one. But on this particular model, you get a frunk, which is really useful. That is good. Look at that. I love that. There is nothing under there except then that is where all your cables are. And that has 31 litres of storage. 31 litres you could put in there. I mean, you could put your shopping in there. I think it's a brilliant place to keep your cables, because it's not under anything else. But, obviously you can put stuff in there if you want to. Styling of this is a clamshell bonnet. It doesn't have shut lines here. It's like all tucked around the side. I think I like that design feature. I appreciate it as someone who doesn't really have a lot to say about design in cars, but that I really like. So it's got, I have to have these things pointed out to me because I don't notice, but it has a rimless rear view mirror. Very smooth. I mean, basically, I've looked in it a lot because it's very useful to have a really good rear view mirror. I didn't really notice. I wasn't terribly affected by the fact that it hasn't got a rim round it. Anyway, that's that. Aside from that, this stuff, I'm not overly thrilled with this. I mean, it's a look, it's a thing, it's some digital referencing, and all this stuff. I mean, the thing is, it's really solid. It's not wibbly wobbly. It doesn't rattle or shake about when you're driving. So that is really good. There's a little side pocket there. There's not one this side. You kind of get in it, you start using it straight away. It's not a problem. See, when you spend a lot of money on a car like a Volvo, things like the back seats, it's very nice. That's very comfy. That is very spacious. plenty of room. I mean, those seats are pushed quite far back. In fact, you know, someone could be sitting in the passenger seat with plenty of room there. I mean, this one is, let me see, there we go. So that seat is where I would have it for driving. Loads of room. It's very spacious. It does have that's so weird, isn't it? That tells you that this vehicle can also be petrol. It's got a big tunnel down the middle. Why do you need that in an electric car? You don't. But they've got it there anyway. Anyway, it's got your USBs, it's got your seat heaters, it's got your individual blowers. Oh yeah, 2 USB-Cs, little pocket, window, door. Nice. So there is a Volvo app, and the app doesn't work yet. It might work. It might be just because this is a press car and they've disabled it. I don't know. But if you'd spent so much money on this car and you couldn't get the app to work, you'd be very upset. The key point is, which I think is, you know, this is an extreme example of it, but you can buy an XC40. So a car that, from a casual observer as it drives past them, looks like pretty damn close to this one, that has a petrol engine. The base model of that is around £26,000, which I still think is expensive. The base model for this is closer to £50,000, so double the cost. Now, how? I just do not know how Volvo or any other company can justify that any longer. So, there we go, the Volvo XC40 P8 Recharge. Okay, this is my take on this. There's nothing wrong with this car. Okay, the software is a bit shonky, but other than that, I mean, look at it, it's fantastic. You could not love it. But the problem is that we're facing as the human race is, this is a big, heavy piece of machinery that for most of its functional life is going to be carrying one person. And when I tweet about new electric cars, people say, well, we should all be using bikes. Yes, we should, but I'm old. I don't want to ride a bike at night in the rain or in the snow. If we just replace all the petrol and diesel cars in the world with electric ones, that's stupid. It's a daft way of doing it. We've got to find another solution. And that's what, when I start driving these amazing, beautifully built new cars, that Volvo's whole existence relies on us buying cars for our own use and leaving them parked doing nothing for 95% of their life is kind of dumb. That's my big criticism, not just of Volvo, of every car maker. And I'm sure they could improve the software. That's easily improvable. I think it's just a joy to drive. I've got to drive about 60 miles back home. I'm looking forward to it. It's great. Audio book on, cruising down the road. Lovely. Anyway, that's all. We haven't done any mention of subscribing or Patreon or anything. It's too late now. That's it. If you have been, thank you for watching.